You are now listening to What's the Fuzz, a furry podcast that advocates for diversity, equality, and cultural exchange inside and outside of the fandom. Never miss another episode again. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And now, your host, Reiner.
Hey Fuzzles, how you doing? It's Reiner, the Blue Dragon, host of the show. Welcome to What's the Fuzz? Whether it's your first time or your 100th time, I welcome you kindly. This episode was originally recorded on February 21st, 2021, and should be published around April 13th, 2021. Now guys, during editing this episode, there was actually another shooting. We've lost a young black man by the name of Dante Wright, who was pulled over for a traffic violation, specifically for having air fresheners hanging up in the back of his car. At this time, the police are claiming the cop that fatally shot him mistook their gun for a taser. He leaves behind a girlfriend and a young child. That's all we know at this time. There isn't a lot I can say here that hasn't been said already, and in fact, if there's anything to be said at all, it's covered in this episode. So I'll keep this short and say that we all need some support right now. Don't be afraid to reach out to each other or lend a hand in these trying times, but don't forget either that BIPOC folks are around 24/7, and not just during times of grief. If you only see us for our pain, then are you really seeing us at all? Support links in the show notes below. As always, I want to thank you lovely listeners out there for all the support you've given to the show, and I hope we can continue making episodes far into the future. Now, we're going to be discussing poverty, toxic independence, and personal privileges on this episode of What's the Fuzz? So, here we go. So I'm sitting down with Rocky, a dancer and all-around viber, unafraid to say what's on their mind. Be sure to check them out over on Twitter, @OnlyRockyThings, linked in the show notes below. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Rocky. Can't wait to get to know you better.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm super stoked.
Hell yeah, of course. But first, I'd like to throw out an icebreaker question for you. You ready for it?
Shoot.
I want to hear the hot take. I want to know what your most overrated furry species is, in your opinion.
I hate to say it, because I am one, but wolves, like, we're a dime a dozen. I swear to God, like, if you breathe sideways in somebody's, like, in a Twitch streamer's Twitch chat, you'll see a wolf. And it's like, hi, individuality?
Exactly. It's always like a wolf with, like, one stripe that's, like, differently colored, too.
Oof, that's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you out like that, but you started, so.
Hey, yeah, no worries. Like, I don't care, man. I know I'm generic as hell. When I like literally made my persona like on Gaia Online back in 2008, right?
Oh, damn.
And I shoot some details for the first artist to ever draw Rocky, and I'm looking around, and the first stock image that I see is this black and red wolf in a trench coat that has like really squinty eyes and is just like very angry looking at the camera. And I'm like, shit, I've already made it into Genericville.
Yeah. What can you do though? Sometimes it just picks you out like that, right?
Yeah. When life makes lemons, you just make sparkle dogs.
Honestly, I'm not much better though. I'm just a blue dragon, you know. Not like there's a bajillion blue dragons out there. I
mean, it depends on the dragon. There's a lot of minutia when it comes to dragons, and I'm just recently finding this out.
Oh yeah?
Got like so? Eastern dragons, Western dragons, dragon hybrids, like certain like dragons from specific lore from like books and movies and whatnot. Like
True.
Whereas with wolves, you got wolf hybrid, another wolf
with wings.
Wolf with wings.
That's my favorite one.
Oh my God. Save the fandom wolf with wings. Fucking image circa 2008 circling around on Img Flip with Photo Bucket.
God. Well, anyway, we should get to the actual meaty part of the interview now. I'm sure our listeners are itching to know a little bit more about you. So to get started, where are you from? How old are you? What are your pronouns? What's your ethnicity? And how would you describe your sexuality/gender identity if you're feeling okay with describing that?
Gotcha. Good. So, Like I said, I'm Rocky. I am from Indianapolis, Indiana, raised in Jackson, Mississippi, moved back to Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm 26, I'll be 27 in October. My pronouns preferred are they, them. Though I don't present it at times, he, him is okay. I don't mind it, but I would heavily prefer they, them. And I consider myself pansexual, wherein I just don't care. Oh, and I'm black as hell. So if you hear me say nigga like 8 different times in this interview, cool. Like, just for reference, what other ethnicity of folks do you see living in Jackson, Mississippi other than us? Like, you don't. But that aside, now I'm an MC. I like to go out and spread positivity to the folks that I am interacting with. And all around, my whole goal in life is to make sure that everybody gets it as they sees it. You know what I mean?
That was a good intro. I feel like you had that prepared or something.
No, I work insurance claims. So I talk to people like literally all day. So I have, I guess you can say, the luck to be able to just come up with shit off the top of my head between MC work and um doing claims and me being in sales previous. Like, my whole life has revolved around me just coming up with shit on the spot or describing things that I can't write quite like picture to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you there. That's definitely a good thing when it comes to interviews like this.
Oh yeah. Like, if it weren't for this type of stuff, and if it honestly, if it weren't for the fandom as an entirety, I probably would have not been social at all. Like, I'd have been scared shitless of an interview like this.
Jeez. It's not that hard, though.
There's a joke to be made there, but I'll refrain.
Oh, okay. We're not gonna we're not gonna touch that one. Okay, so what exactly is your main OC?
So
like they're just a wolf?
To be exact, a Northern Rocky Mountain wolf, and the pun was unintended. Uh, it kills me every time that I think about it, because if you know me and my boyfriend, we're pun machines. But yeah, Northern Rocky Mountain wolf, specifically hailing from the Rockies.
Gotcha. And how do you feel you express yourself through them?
Well, I feel kind of one to one, I guess. I've been trying to mold myself into what, because just for reference, Rocky is who I want to be as a person. Like, I made Rocky in the pretense of they're like 6'2", X amount of pounds that I can't remember because metrics are hard, and they're an outgoing extrovert who wants to be friends with everyone. And at the time when I made Rocky, I was the complete opposite. I ran my mouth to a select few and kept to myself. I'm just kind of trying to grow myself as I grow my persona, and I feel like my persona is as one to myself as possible.
So did you say it helped with your self-image then?
Very much so. If it weren't for like Rocky, I probably wouldn't be confident in anything that I do. To an extent, at least, things inside the fandom and things correlating with the stuff that I've done whilst in the fandom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like seeing another you out there doing the thing. You can feel like you can actually do it.
Exactly.
It's like hypnosis.
Exactly. It's positive affirmation.
And what brought you to the furry fandom in the first place?
Well, interestingly enough, when I was in 6th grade, going into 7th grade, I got super bored and was really finding myself. We can't speak in regards to the details and like specifically what I stumbled upon, but one thing led to another, and I was like, "Hey, what are these furry things?" I Googled furries, stumbled upon Wikifur, read through what is a furry, and literally was just like, "Hey, that's me. I identify with this. Maybe I should be a furry." Bam, we're here.
Damn. And how long ago was that?
Shit. How old am I? 26. Like 12 years ago? 13 years ago, somewhere
So it
around?
was well over a decade.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah.
That is a legacy you've got there.
Yeah. And someone made a Wikifur article for me about it for some odd reason, and it's been there and untouched.
So have you noticed a lot of changes in the fandom over your millennial of partnership?
Oh, the fandom has changed so much, mostly for the better, but I can see where it's coming. A lot of old heads are like raising their own concerns, but honestly, the fandom has grown exponentially. Like there even came a point to where like early on in the fandom, I'm sure a lot of other black furries can relate to this that have been around for a long time. Like a lot of us were just afraid of saying that we were black in fears of, because we're like a minority within a minority. And a lot of folks would just like recess to their corner. And I came like at a time to where Xbox Live, like Xbox 360 Xbox Live was happening and it was real toxic. So with the furry username coming on with having a voice of a whole ass nigga just led to a whole bunch more shit than I would have liked, even within the fandom, joining in on certain groups on Skype and whatnot. It's just like, yeah, I make a joke out of me being black because people make jokes out of it too. So might as well ride the chain to popularity because no one knows who the hell I am. But like nowadays, it's come to a point to where a lot of the fandom is more accepting, and we pushed out those outliers that are racist and assholes, and people that say shit like that get like called out, so to speak. But therein lies a lack of accountability with the call outers who sometimes make baseless claims to people who have done nothing just out of spite. But usually those get swept by the wayside and eventually they mull over. But like I'd say there's more good than bad that has happened over the years, but it's gone from small furry community to like extremely fucking large. Like MFF is huge now. Like FWA is enormous. The dance competitions. I was around when they first started the dance competitions at Furry Weekend Atlanta, and now if you don't have a dance competition at your convention, you ain't doing it right. It's pretty crazy, and you love to see it, honestly. You really do.
So the stakes are really getting risen up, and
oh, considerably. Like new talents coming out of nowhere, and these younger folks that are entering the fandom and being able to capitalize off of their skills that they've developed while they've been at home. And some of these like 15, 16-year-olds are supporting their households with the art that they make, and it's honestly amazing.
It is honestly pretty dope. So then when there's this push for like more diversity and more inclusivity from like the BIPOC community and stuff, exactly. Like we want more diverse music on the dance floors, and we want to see more guests of honor that are BIPOC.
Yep.
They feel like it's a hassle almost, like we're doing so much, that kind of thing.
Right. We really shouldn't have to. But it's kind of similar to, for lack of a better comparison, a lot of old guards in Congress. Like they've been there for long enough that they know what they like, and they think that what they like also like translates to what other people would like. But they're living in a period to where, okay, not all of us are still listening to dubstep and top 40 mashups from 3-4 years ago. So they go by their own tastes, which tend to be antiquated and or specific towards different genres, wherein you got folks like Nonstop Pup, and I've even seen like, look, shout outs to DJ Woozy, like, and we're even getting a little thing together in one of our groups to like start getting a lot more BIPOC, like essentially a committee together to get more BIPOC people like in events such as like dances and floors and whatnot. Good. And it's growing, but not as fast as I honestly think it should be. But therein, it takes time. We just got like people to actually rise up and like say like, look, help me out here. I've got this person who wants to enter this event. Can you please give them the recognition that they deserve, as opposed to we're going to have 18 different DJs entering in this blaringly similar stuff that we've heard for like the last 8 years at about 128 BPM in the same key the entire time. So like it ultimately comes down to leadership. And now with newer conventions popping up and newer heads coming to those conventions, it's bound to change, especially if these new conventions blow up.
True that. How many conventions you gone to?
So far, I've only been to like 3 different conventions, but I've gone to those conventions a total of over like 13 to 14 times. So between IFC, MFF, and FWA, with FWA being, well, actually technically IFC because I live in Indianapolis, but FWA is the biggest convention that I frequent. But I'm as of now, with my new position, I am planning on making some trips with my SO across the Gangon country as soon as this COVID stuff lets up to actually see and experience some friends that I haven't been around like in years.
I wish you luck with that one if this
Thank
plague
you.
ever ends.
Fingers crossed, fam. Fingers crossed.
Seriously. How would you describe those experiences at the cons? What was your favorite one?
Oh my gosh, like magical. There is nothing like a furry convention. Like, and I stand by that. Um, my experiences at furry conventions tend to be, I describe them as cryptid because a lot of my friends are goofy and we tend to get into some shenanigans. Um, we like to get together at like dick o'clock, as we call it, and just like mess around in the lobbies or like do like at some point in time, one of my buddies had a cutout of Jeb Bush and was just carrying the cutout around the convention, and it was the like it's fucking wild.
No.
Like I my favorite con so far, it's a toss up between my first con FWA, and I think this is a FWA 2014 or MFF 2019. But like it's very hard to kind of judge a favorite because all the cons that I've been to have held such high regard in my life to where like there are very specific events from specific cons that stand out like more so than others, and it just kind of melds together onto good vibes with good people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. What do you think about Howlfest? Like, what are you expecting from it?
I am expecting greatness. Now, I'll say that with a caveat because every day one release needs a patch because
True.
there's bound to be something that happens because it always does. But with it being run by Chise, who I've been watching from Twitter as being an exceptional person, and in the general area that it's being run and the method that they're setting things up, I'm mad excited. Like I am willing to make this trip, like from Indianapolis to out in Maryland, like by car, train, plane, whatever, to like go to this because this seems to be a refreshing take on furry conventions.
What about in particular interests you?
So specifically the campground aspect,
Really?
we do have other conventions that have done that, but they've lent more towards the meet in the woods and type of stuff. You know what I mean? This seems to be a more so like wholesome and open event to where like we won't be confined to the indoors per se.
Right.
So we have a lot more room to actually like interact in large scale and walk around an entire area and even bring some stuff that wouldn't really be allowed at like conventions and not even have to worry about like noise because we're out in the open. There's really not much in that area to bother us other than each other. So like if you want to like bring your hand pan and your trumpet and your I don't know, your congos or what have you, go ahead. Like y'all can set up a whole little thing. Hell, we can bring in like a whole set if we want to. Like the freedom of a campground, just the possibilities are nigh endless, and I'm super excited for that.
So it's about the opportunities.
Exactly. I'm
Gotcha.
so pumped.
Gotcha. Well, hell, I'm looking forward to it too. Now that you describe it like that, I should write an advert for them or something.
Dude, I oof. Like 2022 can't come fast enough for multiple reasons, but this being one of the really high up there.
So, would you say being part of the fandom has changed your life in any meaningful way?
Gratuitously, so much so. Like I said earlier, if I wasn't a furry, if I did not go to the conventions and interact with the friends that I've made, like my life has changed significantly. I just want to do you mind if I give a quick shout out?
Go for it.
Cool. I want to give a shout out to my homie Zumba. I doubt like he's probably busting his ass right now, and I respect that. But Zumba, Ikelos, the entirety of the Dancer for community, you guys have helped me grow to a position to where I actually can be confident in me being able to like act as a strong person and like be myself. Shout outs to my boyfriend for doing the same. I would not have met my boyfriend. I would not be living with my roommates who are furries. I would not be given the positions that I've had in work. I would not have been as outspoken, as outgoing, as confident in my body, even. Like, I wouldn't have found my gender identity, might be confused spiritually, which is a whole nother can of worms. And honestly, I don't know where I'd be. I honestly don't know. Like, I've been in this fandom for damn near more than half of my life at this point, and I would not ask for anything else.
Well, I'm glad that it helped you find your way for real.
It's a blessing, honestly. Like, whomever came up with the concept of like furries meeting in mass should be given the Nobel Peace Prize.
So, do you go to fur meets too?
Used to, not as much as I like, COVID, but yes and no. So, like I said, I'm in Indianapolis. Like, the fur meets that we have here are cool, but like there really aren't very many areas for us to like do fun things per se, because we were working out of like a old folks home, quote unquote. It wasn't really an old folks home, but it was like a senior citizen community center that we had. They let us like operate out of there. We go bowling occasionally, but it was more so about the after parties, which were hosted at with the people, one of the people that I live with now, and our other roommate Kusari. We'd have a house like that was right across the street from some other furries, who are legends, by the way. And we'd be like 20, 30 deep in our house, just in the house with people that we would invite to, because it'd be like kind of like kept on the low. So you invite you to the Telegram group. You come after the fur meet, and we just actually party, as opposed to like, keeping it on the mellow because we're in public. Like, we're behind closed doors now. We've got drinks and whatnot ready. We're watching B-Stars and whatnot. People are downstairs with the whole DJ set. It was honestly great. So to answer the question, really no, but yes. So the after parties, yes. The fur meets themselves, not really. Maybe one or two every like 4 or 5 months.
What is it about being a BIPOC furry and part of the furry fandom that sets us apart from everybody else, in your opinion?
Other than the culture that we bring, because in my experience, a lot of furries that are like, because here in Indiana, a lot of furries that we have are in like small rural towns and kind of by themselves, and not a lot of people have interacted with black folks. That said, it kind of falls on the same token to where a lot of people who would come into the fandom that don't really do much in terms of social interaction would only know like us as what they see on TV or what is provided by them like in their peers. A lot of like black nerds in the fandom like are kind of in the similar sense to where they haven't really interacted with other folks that like see the way they are, or other black nerds for that matter. So like I feel like we add a touch of culture and a touch of like experience that would not be otherwise had. Like a lot of these people, until we started talking to like a lot of the leftist furries we have on Twitter and whatnot, would not have known or did not know of some of the problems and the like structural issues that are being voiced by us through us without us coming up and saying, hey, I'm from the hood. Y'all ain't never seen this before. X, Y, or Z, check this out. Or, hey, I went through public schooling. X, Y, or Z, check this out. We give a lot of voice to our struggles as BIPOC that otherwise would not have been heard to like your normal everyday furry from suburbia or from like East Jesus Nowhere Land, Minnesota. You know what I mean? And I feel like the furry fandom, in order for it to continue being the furry fandom, and in order for us to stand by our values as furries as being all accepting, kind of are doing ourselves a service in taking in literally everyone, sharing our experiences, and growing from them.
Oh, definitely. I think there's a lot of value in adding a different perspective to things, because when you're just like all cut up in your own world, you don't even realize some of the things that you've overlooked. Like you take things for granted, like having a driver's license or having the opportunity to get one. There are a lot of adults that don't have them, because they
Right.
didn't have a car or someone to teach them.
Right. Yeah. Like my boyfriend is in that exact situation right now. Came from a city where he really didn't need one and didn't really want to put the pressure on his folks to be like, hey, I need a car. So he's just been taking public transport where he lives now, and really not seeing too much of a need for a car until here recently, where he's been taking lessons from our handler, and we've been kind of working on that. And it's honestly really cool to see him grow from that. But yeah, it's a lot of the things that we have, a lot of the things that I used to have before I realized how good I had it.
What's going on in Texas right now is pretty fucking bad too, obviously.
Yeah, man. Like
those people, I know it's like a red state or whatever, but that doesn't really matter.
Right.
Because some people just can't like leave their state. Like some people just don't have the money to just leave Texas.
Right. And that said, like, even like some of the most affected communities, like in Dallas and El Paso and Fort Worth,
right,
those are blue cities. For like, even if like we took that into account and we were mad at Texas, those are blue voting cities regardless. And even if that even mattered, because realistically, like you mentioned, y'all really should not give a shit, because people are people regardless, as long as they're not coming for your fucking head here. This is thousands of people otherwise who would have supported us and supported our movement and supported what have you, but like they're getting fucked, and especially in the crossfire. And I work property claims as of this week. I am getting inbound calls for these people who have their houses just ruined. People who have bought new houses, having roofs caved in, having floods happen because of bust piping, having garages caved in on brand new cars. People who have made their life's worth investment in some of these houses just getting absolutely ruined because the Texas infrastructure is so garbage that the people didn't prepare about that stuff. And like what boggles my mind is that we see all these folks who have the ability to leave, and then come back and pretend like nothing's ever happened because they want the best for Texas and yada, yada, yada. And they can eat a pack of dicks because they didn't stay around, nor did they offer any support for anybody that was living there. And that's a whole nother can of worms in itself. But that whole Texas situation is fucked. And what is preventable should have been prevented. They should have seen it coming. We saw it coming here in Indiana, knowing that polar vortex was on its way through. But we couldn't, like, the Texas people could not account for that when, I don't know, the weather report came out a month ago saying, hey, there's a real fucked up thing happening in California that might happen here. But they couldn't have warned their constituents about that because, you know, we got to keep those energy costs there, huh?
The energy costs that are starting to happen are freaking insane. Like $16,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's emergency price gouging because they know that they can. There's no way of you getting out. And the execs down there in Texas that are working on these refineries and whatnot, especially with Texaco and Big Oil and whatnot, are just profiteering off this, laughing their way to the bank, making record profits on the backs of the people who barely had a dime to give in the first place. Like, and this should and needs to spark a fire in people's hearts that they didn't realize beforehand to hopefully push Texas and the rest of the nation, for that matter, in the right direction.
Capitalism and white supremacy are best friends.
Yep.
And that is why I hate both of them very much.
Mm-hmm.
Also, capitalism made me feel like my life had no worth when I was working well over, like, around 60 hours a week. So that's cool.
Where at?
Oh, just at a casino. We were, like, always short on people, so I had to work a little extra sometimes. A little
Good
extra.
That's no one should have to work that many hours, period. Like, I am a fervent believer in the fact that we should not need 40-hour work weeks. We really don't need 40-hour work weeks. It's cutting away of a huge portion of our lives that could be better spent doing things that are more beneficial towards society than, you know, stocking shelves so Janine and Karen can get their $6 bottle of milk from the top shelf at a Walmart. Like, it's honestly ridiculous. Like, we as a society work way too hard and are giving way too few options to actually express ourselves and spend our money that won't be damned by someone else. And I feel like I don't want to say that capitalism in itself is the problem, because capitalism breeds, like, what's the word? competition, but American capitalism in itself and the root of capitalism, what it's been like drawn to since it was built on the back of slaves, is exploiting anyone that makes below a certain median income. So America in itself has bred itself to be the root of all evil with our structure that we've set up. Because a lot of these other countries that were kind of kicking the door in and usurping leaders and trying to institute capitalist societies are just going down the tubes when we try to do that, because they've built their systems off of, like Venezuela, they built their systems off of man helping man and everyone living for society, as opposed to society living for everyone as opposed to everyone living for society. Like, if the American system in itself did not strictly benefit the people who had the means of production, then we would not be in this problem. We would not have the issues that we do today if we had more protections for the workers and people were allowed to freely live. We say land of the free, but I ain't free to do half a shit without getting taxed. You know what I mean?
Looks like you've landed in the middle of this episode of What's the Fuzz? While you're here, why don't you drop us a follow, especially if you happen to be on Spotify. We're also on Twitter at @whatsthefuzz_, and if you check the show notes of this episode, you'll find donation links to help Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, and other resources too. Anyway, back to the show. Yeah, so going back to what you said about these systems being built off of helping each other, America is just so selfish. You know, it comes to a point where it's like, this country's just going to destroy itself because no one wants to do anything to help anyone. A wide-scale, wholesale, this idea that everybody needs to do their own thing and no one can help anyone ever. And that's going to turn into us never passing healthcare, like universal healthcare. And it's going to turn into us continuing this poverty line that just keeps like going up and up until it's nothing but the extreme impoverished and then like the extreme wealthy, which we're kind of already there, but there's still like a little bit of a middle class, but that's slowly just disappearing altogether. I just wish that we would realize that we have all the means in the world to make this country as great as possible. We could have the best transportation. We could have the best medical care. We could have the best education. We could have like the best everything, but we don't want to give anyone anything. So we'd rather just not. And the politicians make mad money, so they don't care either. No one cares.
Right.
It's not an enjoyable thing. It's not enjoyable at all.
And there used to be a time where politicians were people too, and they would be in with their constituents. They'd work normal jobs, and they'd go to Congress and be like, "Okay, here's the problems that I see in my community." I ain't seen, now, mind you, West Side shit from Indianapolis. Right. I ain't seen Andre Carson, old bitch ass, a day in my life. His wife was the principal at my cousin's elementary school, which is also my alma mater elementary school, which is weird to say, but I ain't seen this nigga a day in my life. His Twitter profile is blank, but this nigga keeps getting reelected because his name is, he's piggybacking off of his off of his mom's success, who actually made a difference, but his ass is there through nepotism, and the West Side has been tanking. If you've ever been to the West Side of Indianapolis before 2010, it was flourishing. The Lafayette Square Mall was booming. We had just built a couple dealerships down the street. We had a whole strip of dealerships that were thriving. There was an entire set of strip malls that were thriving. The entirety of 38th Street West was nicely paved, businesses running around it. There were businesses popping up in like little areas that you wouldn't even expect. But years go by, the demographics start to change. People start to move from the West Side. One bad thing happens at Lafayette Square Mall, and Simon has an excuse to pull out Lafayette Square Mall tanks. They put a Walmart in, and that Walmart starts sucking up business from other surrounding businesses. Things start to close. Things go to shit. Mom and pop shops start popping up on like the middle of the area of like the whole hub of between 38th Street and 56th Street. And they start flourishing as well, but the infrastructure around them starts to go to shit. People start getting caught with things they shouldn't. Like, and it gets to the point to where we have built up as far as we can. Lafayette Square Mall in this year, 2021, is currently thriving and no one would know it. There are so many minority-owned businesses in the inside of that mall that are pushing their own product and have pulled themselves up by their own bootstrings and have been able to start things like gyms and alternative clothing lines. And there was even a black hair show that they held at Lafayette Square Mall, and I ain't seen that mall packed as much as I did on that day since before 2010. But they're not getting any money from the state. They're not getting any money from the city. The parking lot outside is shit because they don't have the money to replace it because they're not pulling in enough business to facilitate it. And it's this revolving door of getting there, getting to the point to where you can survive, and then getting smacked in the face by something else that came along from somebody who's got twice as much money as you do, going, hey, this is mine now. Instead of like the government going, hey, look, you're successful, here's this, help your community. It's ridiculous. Like, American society should have been, in the good folks in American society have built themselves up by helping their people out and providing the people that work for them and the people that work with them with positivity, affirmation, confirmation, and growth in wealth and health. And until we can actually circle back around to our true American values of looking out for your fellow person and going out of your way to help people and actually just being friendly and giving and not hoarding all this wealth, there's really not much that we can do. Like, and it keeps getting worse and worse as the generations go on, because once the boomers die out, there are going to be even fewer people that have that money. And hopefully by then, with our generations and the generation right before us, we'll be able to see how we've been fucked by the boomers and the silent generation and come together under an accord of just not having enough money to live, but having the resources to do so. America is the most powerful nation in the fucking world. But the more we start fucking each other the way that we have, and the more we start feeding into this pipeline of wealth inequality, the less that we'll be able to do with the world, and for our people. Like, they don't understand how big of a gap there is between like the haves and the have-nots, to where if the haves disappear and there's no one to run shit, what's going to happen? We're going to take over. And a lot of us haven't been put in the positions to know what the fuck to do. Like, if I got $1 million right now, I would not know what the fuck to do with myself. I would give that money away as quick as I can spell my first name, and my first name is 8 letters. Like, I would be helping people out left to right and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you put me in a position to where I had that $1 million and had to allocate it to specific places, communities, and structures, I'll be honest, I would not know what the fuck to do. I would not know where to direct this, or that, because I haven't been in the position to do so. And a lot of people have not been trained to handle these high pressure situations, and the ones that have been trained to handle those situations are only doing so to benefit of themselves and no one else.
Damn.
It's wild. It's wild. Like, we've gotten to, we're very nearing the point of no return, but we can turn this around. If we literally have each other's backs the way that I've seen, especially in the furry community. God, if furry started a fucking nation, dude, I feel like we'd be pretty damn good off.
Furry nation?
Dead ass. Just go find an island like in the middle of like Polynesia that hasn't been like fucked with yet. Just set up houses and trees and shit. Bam. We don't even need a government. We can just run ourselves. Shit, the society will be autonomous. We've got enough people in the furry fandom to literally take care of just about every aspect of life that you need from around the world. From furries from Japan, Korea, China, like the EU, the UK, the US, North and South America. Furries could literally start a society, and it would be no problems as opposed to the normal ones that you would see in society, because a lot of furries know what the fuck is up. From what I've seen, the small majority don't know what the fuck's going on, but they can be taught. And then the smaller minority are racist, and they'll be fucking banned at the door. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell we got into like this furry society thing, but now I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of jiving with it. You know, I would at least visit, see if I like it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a very chill zone.
Oh, yeah. It'd be super chill, I'd imagine. And the other side of it would obviously be something that, that is touchable, but not on air.
Are you talking about yiffing?
Yes.
Okay.
Just gratuitous amounts of it, because you get enough furries in an area, it's just gonna happen. It's just
maybe not the constant orgy party. I feel like maybe that would be a little bit not great for optics.
I mean, if you got enough trees, there's only so much you can see.
What are they doing behind them bushes? Just hanging out.
Hey, Cecilia, why is that shrub moving in like a really weird way? Look away. Don't look at the bush.
No, but I honestly hope someday, within my lifetime before I die, we could see universal basic income or healthcare or all of them. It's just something. Because if people aren't bogged down with 100,000 hours a week with just working and doing mindless labor, and some people like the mindless labor, like sweeping or something, that's cool. You can still sweep in a utopia, you can still sweep, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that you should be able to sweep, but also optionally be allowed to read all day to enrich your mind, your body, your spirit. These feelings that this generation with the depression and the wanting to kill yourself memes and everything, where do you think that stems from? It stems from everything that's going on right now.
Yep.
You don't have enough time to yourself to do anything because you're always worried about how you're going to feed yourself and clothe yourself and have a roof over your head. That's not good for your mental health.
Right. 100%. And no one should ever be subject to that, but here we are. And it's a damn shame, but I feel like it's something that we will be able to change. This is the trajectory that we're having now with everyone lifting their voices is nothing but positive. And with the new guard coming into the new progressives that are coming into Congress, and with a lot of us becoming because a lot of the people that hold our values are also younger than us. So with the voter base growing more and more progressive, and people actually be having access to more of this information to know that X is bad, Y is good, this is helpful for you, this is not. The advent of the internet has just helped a lot of us to elevate our knowledge and to learn. So I see this happening. It's just a matter of us keeping on the straight and narrow and being able to have the dedication to see it through.
Because of the pandemic, I actually realized that if it hadn't been for all this spare time, I wouldn't be as involved as I am now.
Because it's not something that's going to be pushed to the forefront, because you more likely not have things going on in your life that may take precedence over that type of stuff.
Right? And then on top of that, when you have to teach yourself about these issues and these topics, you have to read books, you have to watch documentaries, you have to read articles, and if you're coming home from a 10-hour day at work, you're going to want to plop down on the couch and you're either going to watch Saturday Night Live for some cheap laughs or doom scroll on Twitter for an hour before bed, and then you're going to pass out.
Right. And I feel like that's a contributor to these news outlets that have these half an hour, but it's why Tucker Carlson's scheduled the way that he is, because he comes on at 7:30, 7 o'clock, and
something like that.
Bam, that's when a lot of people are getting home from work. So it's just okay, let's see what's going on in the world. Bam, Fox, or bam, CNN, or bam, whatever news network you've got, and that's all the information that they get. They get that information, they internalize it, they come to their own conclusions based on what they've got, and whoop, there we are, indoctrinated, just like that.
Really is that easy, because people don't have the time to look at anything else. They probably just plop on Tucker Carlson and intake his bullshit and then say, oh, well, that's what's going on with that. I guess Breonna Taylor was a drug dealer. Wow, that's crazy. And they go to bed.
Oh, yeah. I guess George Floyd did have fentanyl in his system. Oh, crazy. Wow. So I guess he did deserve to be choked the fuck out. Fucking stupid. Yeah. Fucking people drawing their conclusions like that and just wanting an excuse to be like dug into their own like confirmation bias and racism just pissed me off, because it's just like, if you look deeper than this, then you would draw the right conclusion of this nigga being whole ass murdered in the street by someone who knew him already and knew what the fuck was going on and knew that he'd be able to get away with it because of the extenuating consequences. Like, come on.
His ass got away with it before.
Right. Got a long ass history of complaints and whatnot. But who polices the police? The police.
Yep.
Oh, and as of recently, not too sure how well spread this was, but there's an Asian gentleman in, I believe this was LA or somewhere out west, that got called for a wellness check. There's video out of him getting capped 7 fucking times with his hands in the air on the bridge.
Oh my god.
Like, he had his hands in the air, nothing in his hand, walking towards the cops, and you can hear the lady in the background in the video saying, they didn't just shoot him. And they shoot him some more times. They're just like, oh no, they fucking shot him. This man, he was like 22 years old. Lord, I apologize for forgetting what his name was, but shot 7 times on video, and the police say that he has a weapon wherein you can see in his right hand that he has absolutely fucking nothing. And how many people have heard of this shit? How many people have heard that this happened? How many people have actually like known that this man was killed in cold blood? And what's going to happen for the policeman? Absolutely fuck all, because no one polices the police.
And this is why we say to defund the police. Like, they should be trained for longer at least.
Right. Yep. It's come to a point now to where, because my dad, when we were living in Indianapolis, my mom and him were still together, worked for the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. He was a juvenile corrections officer, and this was fresh off of his tour with the Marines. He left the squad because, in his words, they started to try to push the rhetoric down to where people that are dark, it was honestly 1-to-1 with that Family Guy like card. People of darker skin more likely than not need to be treated with extra caution, because more likely than not they're involved in something that a white person would not be in, and to express like what's the word, exhibit caution when dealing with people of minority races, because more likely than not they're guilty of what you're pulling them over for. And my dad was like, this is ridiculous. We're stepping in towards the wrong direction. We need reform. We need to stop this. And nothing changed, so he left the force.
God damn.
And it's crazy. Like, this shit's been indoctrinated into the police as a whole since its inception to keep slaves in check. And now we've gotten to the point to where the military has a direct line to the police to sell them MRAVs and M203s to launch smoke grenades and shit, and feeding them tactics to corral and kettle and beat the shit out of and disable people. People got shot in the face. People lost limbs. People were trampled. People were maimed. People were killed.
Or ran over by fucking cars.
Yep. All because they were peacefully protesting and out too late. Should not happen. Should never happen. And this has set a precedent for governments around the world to do so. Like I believe there's the SIDS or SAGE or something of the sort in Africa that have been firing live rounds into civilians. We've got Polish officers that are beating the shit out of LGBT protesters. We've got like people in France who are going the fuck off, rightfully so. People in Myanmar who just recently had a military coup happen. Mm-hmm. People in Hong Kong who have had their democratic rights stripped from them. People in China who are being corralled because they've got shitty social scores. And America, while we put all of our news out there for everybody else, are just setting a precedent for worse shit to happen. Like Jair Bolsonaro. It's ridiculous. And as an American, it makes me ashamed to go anywhere outside of the country because they look at us and say, "You guys put this stupid ass turnip in a position of power. Why?" It blows my mind every day to see that these police officers are better off equipped than the classrooms in public schools. Like Jackson Public Schools got books that are falling out of the fucking bindings, ceilings that leak, and facilities that have dips in the fucking football fields. But the policing in the general area has enough money to go out and fund and sponsor a brand new stadium for rich white peopleville. Like, no, that shouldn't happen. That should not be the case.
I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. That was really well said.
Thank you.
Big
Big
it really
anger.
wears on you.
Yeah, man. It's some shit that we as PLC have to carry with us every fucking time we leave our neighborhoods. That, man, if I get pulled over today, or man, if somebody comes at me sideways, or man, if X were to happen and I were to have to spend money on Y, it's just some shit that we have to carry with us. And I'm like, this is one of the few blessings that I say that ADHD comes with, is that I literally don't have to think about that until the time comes to think about it. Like, my brain pushes things out of my brain until it needs to be said. And luckily enough, I can function with having to code switch and pretend like I'm like your casual, everyday, upstanding citizen, when in all reality, like, I drive through my neighborhood, my windows down, blasting kill switch engaged at max volume, and driving like 20 miles an hour over the speed limit in the areas that I can. And if I were to get pulled over, I could pretend like I'm the star citizen of the northwest side of Carmel, because I have a Carmel address and I pay Carmel taxes, and sometimes I like to go to X, Y, or Z. I'm just lucky. I'm just blessed, honestly, that I've been put in a scenario to where I'm much, I don't want to say better off, but I have less of a chance to be pulled for like existing because of my real name. And I wasn't named like LaShawn or something like that. Because like, I've got friends that I would say, and I rarely say this because, pardon me for tooting my own damn horn, but I consider myself to be relatively intelligent. I've got friends that have got names where you can pull syllables out from different words, put them together, that are gratuitously smarter than me, that have been denied opportunities because LaShonda doesn't sound professional enough. And just another example of a struggle that we have to sit through every fucking day. And there's nothing that we can do about it because society is built in a way to benefit some and not all.
But hey, how did you get started with the dancing and the hyping and whatnot?
So remember I shouted out my buddy Zumba earlier? So I met him on Xbox Live, and he threw me into the OG Dancer for Skype on chat on Skype, like in 2010. And I met a lot of dancer first, and they encouraged me to start dancing, so I did. And I'm still, I'd say, a solid like 3 out of 10 when it comes to dancing. And at my second convention ever, my buddy Jet was having a set during the Dead Dog. It was the very first setup, and there wasn't anybody on the floor, and there were people on the outside with speakers. So I got pissed because there's a very big taboo to stand outside of someone else's dance with your own music on speakers. So I got on the mic. I asked him to give me the microphone, and I was just like, screw it. I'm going to do it. What have you. I grabbed the microphone, started chiding people to come in and got a lot of people to come in, and that's kind of history. Henceforth, I've been invited to do other events that I ended up missing out on. And a lot of people have been like goading me to do more events, which I will once this COVID stuff ends up like being non-existent for the most part. But yeah, basically, like drug into a friend group to learn more about the friend group. Friend group expanded and welcomed me with open arms, and now I'm just doing what I can to help and to put those vibes out there, like I mentioned, to encourage more people to get up and dance and more people to join like the family, so to speak. And now we've got dancer fairs from around the damn world chiming in on virtual events and VR and whatnot, and it's just amazing.
Awesome.
It's
great. How far do you want to take this thing?
Community so much. Now, as far as it'll let me, I would honestly love for this to grow into something that happens more often, and something that, a lot of people who have set the groundwork for can help grow into something that they've pictured. Like, say, for example, MFF maybe being a dance competition in Flowers, maybe being televised once a year or something. I don't know. Like, I feel like this has the potential to draw in so many people who have been sitting and haven't had their opportunity to like be confident in their own skin. So they put on a fursuit to go out and express what they couldn't just normally. So like it gives them a medium to essentially be themselves. And if this grows to a point to where more people are safe in their own skin and more people have the drive and the inspiration to get out and do things, that's all I ask for, be it via live stream or via television or even via recording, honestly. Like, as big as it gets, who knows? Like, it can go as big as it wants to or as big as we let it, but as long as we can touch some people and help them to grow past their inhibitions, then
hell yeah,
that's all I ask for.
You got some furries up there on ESPN. Let's do it.
That'd be fucking... Well, we have one on ESPN too, but that's Sonic Fox.
Yeah, that's true.
They're fucking awesome.
I would just got to get everybody else on there.
Oh yeah, bring the squad, bring the whole squad. I'm ready for CC Crew to be live on TV giving dance lessons and shit.
Who are some cool BIPOC furs out there doing some cool shit that you want to shout out?
Shout outs to DJ fucking Woozy, the homie. Like, he's getting together, like I mentioned, a group of BIPOC furs who are actually going to be putting things on. Shout outs to Ozzy Fox. They're really not putting out too much content as of late, but they're an inspiration and a dancer that I like strive to like essentially put out there, so to speak. And I'm seeing a metric ton of BIPOC furry artists that are honestly too innumerable to name, and I'll make a list on Twitter and just get it out there. But there are a lot of BIPOC furries that are now popping up and strutting their stuff, and it makes me really, really happy to see.
All right, last question for you. What is your favorite thing about being a furry?
The community. You're doing something wrong if you don't know somebody that shares a similar interest with you. And we're so vast and accepting and so creative and welcoming that a lot of the people that come into the fandom dragging their feet or shit, kids in registration lines with their moms. Me and my buddy Kaiju went out of our way to talk to this kid's mom and make sure that he felt comfortable in this environment. If you want to be a furry, furries will help you. If you need help, furries will help you. If you need some money, furries will help you. If you need anything that is feasibly possible, there is a furry out there that will help you because you are a furry. Like, this community is amazing. And I honestly can't see another community like us in the whole fucking world. And it makes me so happy.
All right. That just about does it for this episode. Thank you again, Rocky, for coming down on the show and chatting with me.
Thank you, Reiner. I appreciate you having me and letting me go on that long-winded tangent earlier.
I think it was full of very useful information that the people out there needed to hear. So you've got the spotlight to promote anything you'd like. Go for it.
All right. So, what I want y'all to do is follow @consciously. Should be in the description, like they mentioned earlier, on Twitter. You ain't gotta follow me, but my @ is like they mentioned, only Rocky things. Be sure to stay on the lookout for my homie Doryu, streaming every day at DoryuZ on twitch.tv. And please, if you have the time to or the money to, donate towards Texas, donate towards Oregon, towards Washington, towards these people that are out of power, out of mind, out of home. Make sure that you do something within this week that benefits not just you but someone else. And as always, please just keep it smiling, fling those vibes around, and stay happy, y'all. There are better days to come, be it today, tomorrow, the next.
Be sure to follow the show at whatsthefuzz_ on Twitter. And thanks everybody out there for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.